Next Level Soul Publishing presents The Science of Psychic Healing by Yogi Ramacharaka. Read by William Sterling. Health disclaimer. The information provided in The Science of Psychic Healing is for educational and informational purposes only. It is not intended as a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always seek the guidance of a qualified healthcare professional before making any changes to your health or wellness practices. The author and publisher do not claim to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease and assume no responsibility for how this information is used. Individual results may vary. Introduction. There are whispers in the ether, currents of life moving unseen through the fabric of our being, pulsating with the rhythm of existence itself. Healing, true healing, is not the work of mere chemicals or mechanics, but an attunement to this great symphony of energy. And yet, here we are, tangled in a world that sees the body as a machine and the mind as a ghost, rattling within its hollow chambers. But what if we told you that the body, the mind, and what lies beyond them are not separate at all? That healing is not a mending of broken parts, but the reawakening of a harmony that has always been present? This is the invitation extended by The Science of Psychic Healing, a book that does not deal in speculative fantasies, but in direct, experiential realities. Yogi Ramacharaka, a name that echoes the wisdom of the East into the receptive minds of the West, does not propose healing as something granted by an external force. Rather, he unveils the truth that healing is, and has always been, the result of a deeper knowing, an alignment with the principles of life itself. The Next Level Soul edition of this masterpiece brings forth a new lens for modern seekers. In addition to the original teachings, this edition offers chapter summaries, key insights, and practical action items to help integrate these profound concepts into daily life. This is not a book to be merely read. It is a book to be practiced, felt, and embodied. The Hidden Forces of Healing. Healing, as most understand it, is often relegated to the realm of medicine, a domain of pills and procedures, of ailments categorized like taxonomies of error. But let us consider for a moment a perspective not weighed down by the rigidity of materialism. What if healing is not about fighting against disease, but about restoring the body to the natural state it yearns to return to? This book reveals that healing is not a thing to be added to us, but something to be uncovered from within. It speaks of Prana, the universal life force, flowing through all things, animating, nourishing, and sustaining the dance of existence. It teaches that the mind, when properly directed, does not merely influence the body. It is the body, just as a wave is the ocean. And thus, by shifting the patterns of thought, by realigning our awareness, we can reshape our reality. The Threefold Path to Healing. Yogi Ramacharaka outlines three principal ways in which healing may be accomplished. Pranic healing. The conscious direction of life force energy to rejuvenate and reawaken the body's innate vitality. Mental healing. The profound influence of thought upon the physical form. Dissolving ailments by shifting the patterns of belief. Spiritual healing. The higher attunement to divine intelligence, where the healer becomes a conduit for cosmic restoration. Each of these is not an isolated method, but a facet of the same underlying reality. Prana, mind, and spirit. These are not separate entities, but interconnected aspects of the one great whole. Beyond healing, a path to mastery. To engage with these teachings is not merely to learn how to heal. It is to awaken to the realization that we have always been whole. What is a sickness but a momentary forgetting of our natural state? And what is healing but the act of remembering? This book does not offer empty promises or mere affirmations. It provides the precise mechanics by which one may experience this truth firsthand. With each chapter, the seeker is guided deeper into the understanding of how energy moves, how thought creates, and how spirit reveals itself through form. The Next Level Soul Edition enhances this journey by distilling each chapter into practical, applicable wisdom. Summaries that highlight core teachings, ensuring that the essence is grasped without getting lost in details. Key points that extract the most impactful truths, making it easy to reflect on and absorb the material. Actionable practices that bridge the gap between knowledge and experience, so that this book does not remain theory, but becomes a living force in your daily life. An invitation to the seeker. This is a book for those who sense that there is more to reality than meets the eye. It is for those who have glimpsed the deeper rhythms of existence and wish to understand them more fully. It is for those who are ready to reclaim their own power, not as an act of egoic dominance, but as an act of humble alignment with the infinite intelligence of the universe. And so, as you turn these pages, approach them not as mere words on paper, but as keys that unlock the doorways of perception. Read with an open mind, practice with an open heart, and witness as the barriers between sickness and health, limitation and possibility, self and universe, begin to dissolve. The truth has always been within you. You are now invited to remember. Chapter 1. The Purpose of the Book. This book is intended to be a plain, simple, practical presentation of the various forms of psychic healing. We have said very little about theory, although giving a general outline of the underlying theories that the healer may understand the nature of the work he is doing, and have tried to make the book tell how to do the work. In introducing the subject, we wish to say that we have not tried to make a religion of psychic healing, for this seems a folly to us. We do not see why psychic healing should be made into a religion, any more than should drug healing, massage, osteopathy, or any other form of healing. All true healing results from an application of perfectly natural laws, and the power employed is as much a natural law as is electricity. For that matter, all natural laws are of divine religion, and are equally worthy of respect and reverence. There has been a great tendency in the Western world to build up religious or semi-religious cults around the work of healing. Each cult or sect claims that its cures and healing is the result of some special creed or metaphysical belief, notwithstanding the fact that the other sects make cures in about the same proportion. The Oriental is not deceived, even self-deceived, in this manner. He is taught from childhood that there are many subtle forces and forms of energy in nature, which may be taken advantage of and pressed into service by man. To the Oriental, there is as much mystery and awe about electricity as about psychic force. In fact, he sees them as but varying forms of the same thing, and he respects them both. A little reflection will teach anyone that this is correct. All energy and force is a manifestation of prana, the Hindu term for the principle of energy. And the Oriental teachings are that prana has mind behind it, that it emerged from the mind principle of the universe. We cannot speak at length of these theories here, and must refer students to our advanced course in yogi philosophy for fuller information, if they desire the same. The above facts being true, it follows that the Oriental psychic healer fails to feel that jealousy and prejudice regarding practitioners of other forms of healing, which, alas, is so prevalent in the Western world. He believes that any form of true healing employs the same force and power that he is using, notwithstanding the difference in the methods, and he respects the same accordingly. He naturally prefers his own method, but does not abuse his neighbor for preferring another method. Moreover, the Oriental healer is taught from the beginning that there are certain natural laws of the body, which must be observed in order to maintain health, or to restore it if lost. He believes that that which makes the healthy man healthy will make the sick man well. We allude to the natural laws regarding nutrition, elimination, breathing, etc. We have set forth our conception of these laws in our book, Hatha Yoga, and will briefly mention the same in the succeeding chapter entitled The Natural Laws of the Body, to which we refer all students, strongly advising them to acquaint themselves with these natural laws before attempting healing work. We are fully aware that many Western schools of psychic healing ignore these laws as too material, but one has but to look around him to see the folly of that position. Natural laws may not be defied with impunity. We believe that if people would follow the teachings of Hatha Yoga, there would be no need for healing of any sort, for all would maintain health. But people will not do this, and therefore healing methods are necessary. And we believe that psychic healing is the best and highest form of healing known to man. But even psychic healing will not and cannot effect a permanent cure, unless the patient will change his or her habits of living, and will endeavor to live in accordance with nature's laws. So therefore, again and again, do we urge the healer to acquaint his patient with these natural laws of the body. Hatha Yoga, and while giving the healing treatments, he should endeavor to work in advice and instruction regarding the natural laws of the body, so that when the patient is healed, he will live in such a manner as to promote health and to hold the ground he has gained and not slip back again. We believe that these two books, companion books, Hatha Yoga and Psychic Healing, will give one the key to health. This book is not intended as a treatise upon disease. On the contrary, it says as little as possible about disease and prefers to keep before the eye of the student the healthy condition and the means of bringing it about. Therefore, you will see but little of symptoms in this book. Symptoms are but various indications of a cause behind them, and we believe that there is only one general cause for disease, and that is improper functioning of the cells. In other words, we believe that all disease is but cell disease, and we believe that the general treatments given in connection with the principles laid down in Hatha Yoga will remove the cause of the trouble, and the symptoms will then disappear. We will not take up your attention with praise of the systems of healing taught in this book. We believe that the proof of the pudding lies in the eating, and we say to you, try it. Have confidence in yourself and in your healing power. It is your divine heritage and is not a gift bestowed upon but a few. It is a general gift and natural power that may be developed by practice and confidence, and instead of decreasing by use, it grows in proportion to its use. It is like a muscle that is developed by practice, but which becomes soft and flabby by non-use. But when you begin to make cures and hear wonderful reports of your success, which may seem miraculous to those around you who do not understand the subject, do not become puffed up or conceited, and begin to believe that you have some special gift or power. This is folly, for all healers are but channels of expression through which the natural forces and energies flow. You are but an instrument in the hands of natural laws. Do not forget this. This thought may be turned into a source of strength if you will look at the other side of the proposition and remember that you have the forces of the universe back of you. We advise the student to carefully study and acquaint himself with all of the methods taught in this book. After doing so, let him select the methods that appeal most to him, being guided by his intuition. Let him, if he is so led, take a little from one system and a little from another, and combine them into a system of his own. Let him take his own wherever he finds it. Do not deem it necessary to tie yourself to any one system, or to wear the label or tag of any one school. Beware of labels and tags on the mind. Be yourself. Summary. This book serves as a practical guide to psychic healing, offering techniques that can be applied rather than simply theorized about. Healing is presented as a natural process, governed by universal laws, rather than a mystical or supernatural ability. The goal is to help individuals understand and work with these principles to improve their own health and assist others. Key takeaways. Healing is accessible to everyone and follows natural laws. Theories are only valuable when they lead to real-world application. Healing should be approached with an open mind and willingness to practice. Action items. Begin by observing your current beliefs about healing. Approach this book as a practical manual, not just a theoretical discussion. Be open to testing different methods and tracking their effects on your health. Chapter 2. Natural Laws of the Body. As we have stated in our last chapter, we believe that the true secret of health lies in the observance of the natural laws of the body. These laws may be summed up as right living and right thinking. In our book, Hatha Yoga, we have explained our conceptions of these laws at considerable length and detail. We do not hesitate to state positively that every healer or searcher for health should acquaint himself with the instructions given in that book. Without an understanding of these fundamental laws, any and all forms of healing are but temporary makeshifts, and the patient, if he pursues the former improper modes of living and thinking, will relapse into his old condition when the treatments are discontinued. There can be no successful defiance of natural laws. In this chapter, we will run briefly over the principal laws described in Hatha Yoga, for the benefit of those readers who have not acquainted themselves with the contents of that book. But this chapter cannot begin to give the Hatha Yoga instruction fully, for that fills a good-sized book of itself. In the first place, there can be no health without proper nutrition, and there can be no proper nutrition without proper assimilation. This being granted, it may be seen that one of the first things for a healer to do is to re-establish normal conditions in this respect and build up proper assimilation. This is why we have urged the healer to begin all treatments for all kinds of complaints with a treatment of the stomach to restore normal conditions there. The stomach should be treated first, last, and always, for there lies the secret of the first step toward recovery. In fact, the majority of diseases may be traced directly to the stomach and to imperfect nutrition and assimilation. A man can no more thrive on non-nutritious food or food imperfectly assimilated than can a tree or plant or animal. Imperfect nutrition causes the blood to become poor and weak, and consequently, every cell in the body becomes weakened and starved, and even the brain cells suffer with the rest and are unable to send the proper currents of vital force and energy to the other parts of the body. Always begin treatments by treating the stomach thoroughly, by whatever method you use. Insist that it take care of the food given it, and that it assimilates the food and converts it into good, rich, nourishing blood, which will flow to all parts of the body, giving health and strength. And insist upon your patient partaking of nourishing food in sufficient quantities. One of the best ways to get the full nourishment of the food partaken of is by perfect mastication. Food perfectly masticated gives the full amount of nourishment contained within it, which food, half chewed and bolted, wastes the greater part of its nourishment. We urge the importance of this matter upon the healer. We have seen cases of ill-nourished people restored to health in a very short time, merely from the change in the manner of masticating the food. All food should be chewed until it becomes soft, pulpy, and pasty. The second important point is the irrigation of the body, as we have called it in Hatha Yoga. We mean the proper use of water. The physical system requires a certain amount of fluids daily in order to do its work properly. About 2 quarts of fluid in 24 hours is the normal amount for an adult. Without the proper amount of water, the body is unable to do its work properly, and the system suffers. Perfect secretion and excretion require the normal amount of fluids. Otherwise, the secreting glands are unable to manufacture the juices and fluids needed in digestion, absorption, and assimilation, and the excreting glands are unable to provide for the excretion or throwing out of the waste products of the system through the kidneys and bowels. The liver is unable to act without sufficient fluids, and the other organs likewise suffer. The third requisite for health is correct breathing. When you realize that unless correct breathing is performed by the patient, the blood is imperfectly oxygenated and is therefore unable to perform its functions, you will begin to see why a person breathing improperly is unable to have health. Practice deep breathing yourself until you understand it perfectly, and then instruct your patient in the art. Our little book, The Science of Breath, gives full and complete direction for correct breathing. We advise you to acquaint yourself with its contents. Exercise, bathing, etc. are important things to be observed. The healer should inform the patient as to this fact. Sleep is a needed something that nature insists upon. Without a sufficient degree of rest, the brain becomes overworked and complications set in. In short, the patient should be instructed to become a normal, sane, natural being. Stick as closely as possible to nature, and she will do the rest. The natural laws are designed for the furtherance of health, and if not interfered with will produce and maintain normal conditions. The trouble with us is that modern civilization has drawn us so far away from nature that our natural impulses and tendencies have been smothered and stifled, and we have ceased to listen to nature's voice until she has become disheartened and has ceased to call us. The only sane plan is to get back to nature, as near to her as possible. Live as natural a life as possible, and you will have the reward that nature bestows upon those who are true to her. Our book, Hatha Yoga, is the yogi conception of the natural life. Natural life is taught on every page. It holds that there is a great intelligence permeating all life, and that every natural law is a divine law, and should be so regarded and observed. We urge upon every healer the duty and privilege that is his to educate and inform the patients to whose aid he is called in these laws of right living and right thinking. This particular book is not designed to repeat the instruction contained in Hatha Yoga, but instead is designed to supplement it to the end that those who have violated nature's laws and who are suffering therefrom may be speedily brought back to normal conditions, the condition of health, and again started on the road of life. The healer should be more than a healer. He should be an instructor and educator of the people. In this way, he makes his calling a divine and sacred one, instead of that of a mere tinkerer of bodies. Keep this ideal ever before you, and your work will be one of the greatest pleasures as well as of the greatest success. Remember the brotherhood of man, and realize that your work in the world is to spread the glad tidings of health and strength, and lead your brothers back to Mother Nature, from whose bosom they have strayed. Summary: the body functions best when aligned with natural laws, including proper nutrition, rest, exercise, and breathing. Psychic healing works in conjunction with these principles and is most effective when the body is already in a balanced state. Ignoring these fundamentals can limit the effectiveness of any healing practice. Key takeaways: the body has an innate ability to heal when given the right conditions. Physical health and mental well-being are deeply interconnected. Psychic healing is most effective when combined with proper self-care. Action items: assess areas of your lifestyle that may be out of balance. Make one small change to improve your nutrition, sleep, or exercise routine. Observe how your physical habits influence your mental and emotional state. Chapter 3: The Instinctive Mind. In our 14 lessons, we called your attention to the various planes of the mind, and, among others, the instinctive mind. This plane of the mind, as we told you, controls and manages the growth, nourishment, and operation of the physical body. Every operation and function of every organ, part, and cell being under the control and direction of this part of the mind. This part of the mind never sleeps, but attends to its duties, while the reasoning faculties are quieted in slumber and rest. The constant work of repair, replacement, change, digestion, assimilation, elimination, etc., is performed by this part of the mind, all below the plane of consciousness. The wondrous work of the body is carried on this plane of mind without our conscious knowledge. The intelligent work of the cells, cell groups, ganglia, organ intelligences, etc., are under the superintendence of this plane of mind. In our next chapter, we give you a short account of this wonderful world of cell life that exists in every human organism. We advise you to read that chapter, as it will throw light on many puzzling questions and will enable you to direct your healing powers intelligently. The instinctive mind is not confined to the brain as a seat of operations, but is distributed over the entire nervous system, the spinal column and solar plexus being important centers for its operations. One of the most important facts that we have to consider in connection with the instinctive mind in this book is that it is susceptible of interference on the part of the conscious mind. This interference may be for good or bad, according to the nature of the suggestions passed on by the conscious mind. In our chapter on suggestion, we have given a number of instances to illustrate the effect of the mind on the bodily functions. This effect of thought is occasioned by the conscious mind passing on suggestions to the instinctive mind, which then proceeds to act upon them. Many a man has become sick by reason of adverse and hurtful suggestions accepted by him and passed on to his instinctive mind. In the same way, a sick man has been restored to health by positive and helpful suggestions accepted and passed on in the same manner. And in both cases, remember, the diseased condition and the restored healthy condition were occasioned by perfectly natural process, by the instinctive mind passing on its orders to its subordinate parts, cells, organs, etc. We do not think it worthwhile to enter into a long discussion of the various theories advanced to account for the existence and operation of the instinctive mind. This book is intended to tell you how to make cures, and all the theory we think it worthwhile to give you is a mere general outline for the purpose of an intelligent comprehension of the process of the cure. To wander off into an extended discussion of the theories regarding mind or the speculations regarding life and what lies back of life would be out of place. We believe in keeping each subject to itself, believing that in this way the student is better able to concentrate upon the particular subject under consideration. The workings of the instinctive mind will appear as you proceed with the study of the methods of treatment. The next chapter, which deals with cell life, will also throw further light on the subject. Summary: the subconscious, or instinctive mind, regulates automatic bodily functions, including healing. By directing positive thoughts and suggestions to this part of the mind, individuals can accelerate their healing processes. Conversely, negative thoughts and emotions can disrupt these functions and lead to illness. Key takeaways: the subconscious mind plays a key role in healing and overall health. Positive suggestions can enhance the body's natural ability to heal. Negative emotions and thoughts can create physical disturbances. Action items: pay attention to your self-talk and shift negative patterns into positive ones. Practice visualization techniques where you see your body healing itself. Experiment with relaxation exercises to communicate calmness to your subconscious. Chapter 4: Mind in Cells and Cell Communities. In order to understand the nature of psychic healing, one must have an acquaintance with the nature of the mental side of the body. Not only has the central mind a number of planes of manifestation, but each organ has something which might be called an organic mind, made up of a group mind of a number of cells, each of which cells, moreover, has a cell mind of its own. This idea is somewhat startling to those who have not acquainted themselves with the details of the subject, but it is known to be correct, not only by the yogis, but also by those who have familiarized themselves with the recent discoveries of Western science. Let us take a hasty look at this cell life. As we told you in the 14 lessons, the yogi philosophy teaches that the physical body is built up of little lives, or cell lives, and that each cell had an independent action, in addition to a cell community action. These little lives are really minds of a certain degree of development, sufficient to enable them to do their work properly. These bits of mind are, of course, subordinate to the control of the instinctive mind of the individual, and will readily obey orders from that source, as well as from the intellect. These cell minds manifest a peculiar adaptation for their particular work. Their selective action in extracting from the blood the nourishment needed, and rejecting that which is not needed, is an instance of this intelligence. The process of digestion, assimilation, etc., shows the mind of the cell, either individual or in groups. The healing of wounds, the rush of the cells to the point where they are required, and many other instances familiar to physiologists are evidence of this cell life and mental action. The entire body is built up of these tiny cells. This is true not only of the soft tissue and muscle, but also of the hard bony parts, including the enamel of the teeth. These cells are shaped in accordance with the particular work that they are designed to perform, such shapes and forms varying materially. Each cell is, practically, an individual, separate and more or less independent, although subject to the control of the organic mind, and, still higher, the instinctive mind. The cells are constantly at work, each performing his own particular task, like a well-trained soldier in an army. Some of the cells are active workers, and others are of the reserve force, kept awaiting some sudden and urgent call to duty. Some are stationary, and others are moving about attending to their particular duties and tasks. Some of them act as the scavengers of the system, carrying away the refuse and debris of the system, while others carry the nourishing elements of the food to all parts of the body. Cell life has been compared to a large and well-ordered community, each individual doing his own particular work, all for the common good. The community is a large one, it being estimated that there are at least 75 billion of the red blood cells alone. These red blood cells are the common carriers of the body, and float in the arteries and veins, carrying a load of oxygen from the lungs and delivering particles of it to the various tissues of the body, which give life and strength to the particular parts. On their return journey through the veins, the cells carry with them the waste products of the system. Like a merchant vessel, these cells carry a cargo on their outgoing trip and bring back a second cargo on their return. Other cells perform police work and protect the system from bacteria, etc., which might produce trouble in the system. These policemen are quite savage and usually get rid of the intruder by devouring him, but if unable to so dispose of him, they rally in number and finally eject him from the system in the shape of a boil, pimple, etc. The cells enable the body to carry on its work of continual regeneration. Every part of our bodies is being repaired constantly by fresh material, and the cells do the work. Millions of these little workers are constantly moving along, or else working in a fixed position in the parts of our bodies, renewing the worn-out tissues and replacing them with new material, and at the same time throwing out of the system the worn-out and discarded material. Each of the cells of the body, no matter how humble its functions may be, is possessed of an instinctive knowledge of that which is vital to its life work, and its own life. It takes nourishment and reproduces itself by increasing in size and then separating. It seems to have a memory, and in other ways manifests mind action. We do not consider it necessary to go deeply into this matter at this point, and merely mention these facts that the reader may understand that these cells are living things having mind action. These cells are built up into organs, parts, tissue, muscle, etc., and form what is known as cell communities, in which their minds seem to combine, in addition to their having independent mental action. In the case of the liver, for instance, the millions of cells composing that organ have a community mind, which may be called the liver mind, and which acts as an entity, subject always to the control of the instinctive mind. This is a most important fact to remember in connection with psychic healing, for the whole principle of the latter depends upon the fact that these organs, through their minds, are amenable to mental control and direction. As we have said, each cell belongs to a cell group, and each group forms a part of a larger group, and so on until the whole forms a great group or whole community of cells under the control of the instinctive mind. And the little minds of the entire cell community combine under the control of that great instinctive mind. And, at the same time, there are lesser combinations and still lesser until the mind of the single cell is reached. The entire mental organism of the cells is something quite wonderful and startling. The control of these cell communities is one of the duties of the instinctive mind, and it usually does its work very well, unless interfered with by the intellect, which sometimes sends it fear thoughts and demoralizes it. The intellect insists upon interfering with the established order of the body, and by introducing strange customs and habits, tends to demoralize the cell communities and to bring disorder into their ranks. Sometimes something akin to rebellion springs up among these cell communities or groups, and they revolt at working overtime, or from similar reasons. In this connection, we take the liberty of quoting from our book entitled Hatha Yoga, which gives a clear idea of these cell rebellions. The book says, "At times it seems that some of the smaller groups, and even some of the larger on certain occasions, go on a strike, rebelling against unaccustomed and improper work forced upon them, working overtime, and similar causes, such as a lack of proper nourishment. These little cells often act just as would men under the same circumstances. The analogy is often startling to the observer and investigator. These rebellions or strikes seem to spread if matters are not arranged, and even when matters are patched up, the cells seem to return to their work in a sullen manner, and, instead of doing their work the best they know how, they will do as little as possible, and only just when they feel like it. A restoration of normal conditions, resulting from improved nutrition, proper attention, etc., will gradually bring about a return to normal functioning, and matters may be very much expedited by orders from the will, directed immediately to the cell groups. It is astonishing how soon order and discipline may be restored in this way. Science has shown us the truth of the old yogi teachings that all disease was cell disease, and it follows that if we can manage to get control of the cell trouble, we have mastered the entire problem. This control may be acquired in a number of ways, and the explanation of these ways and their method of application forms the subject of this book. Summary: every cell in the body has intelligence and operates in cooperation with others. When the communication between cells is disrupted, disease arises. Healing occurs by restoring the proper balance and communication between these cell communities. Key takeaways: the body is composed of intelligent cells that respond to mental influence. Cellular harmony is essential for good health. Disease is often the result of blocked or misdirected energy within the body. Action items: visualize your cells working together in harmony. Use deep breathing to enhance oxygen flow to all parts of the body. Be mindful of how stress and negativity impact your physical well-being. Chapter 5. The three forms of psychic healing. As we stated at the close of our last chapter, the control of the cells manifesting physical disease might be accomplished by the several forms of psychic healing, which may be considered in three forms known as 1. Pranic healing, or healing by the sending of prana or vital force to the affected parts, thereby stimulating the cells and tissue to normal activity. The result being that the waste matter is ejected from the system and normal conditions restored. This form of healing is known in the Western world as magnetic healing, etc., and many cures have been made by reason thereof, although many of the healers have not known the principles underlying the work, although they had acquired a very good working knowledge of the methods to be employed. 2. Mental healing, by which is meant the control of the cell minds, either direct or through the instinctive mind of the sick person. This form of healing includes what is known in the Western world as mental healing, direct and absent, suggestive healing, psychic healing, etc., 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 and includes many so-called religious forms of healing which are but forms of mental healing, disguised under the cover of religious teachings and theories. 3. Spiritual healing, by which is meant a high form of healing arising from the healer possessing a high degree of spiritual unfoldment, and allowing the light of his or her higher mentality to pour forth upon the mind of the patient, bathing him in a wave of high thought and lifting him, temporarily, to a higher plane of being. This form of healing is not nearly so common as one might be led to believe from listening to the talk of the healers and their patients. In fact, it is very rare, and none but healers of a very high order possess it. Many who think that they have it are simply using the ordinary methods of mental healing, and have not the slightest idea of what true spiritual healing consists of. But no harm is done, so long as the results are obtained, and we merely mention the matter here, that the reader may form a clear idea of the entire subject. Each of these forms of psychic healing will be considered in turn as we proceed. The principal point to be remembered at this point is that at the last all forms of psychic healing are forms of mental healing. Even the healing by prana is mental healing, for the prana is moved by the mind, and in fact is the power of mind itself, as we shall see presently. The disease or trouble is called physical, that is manifest in the cells of the physical body, and, if we examine it closely, we will see that it is really a mental trouble of the particular cells affected. And consequently, the only way a cure may be effected is by reaching the mental part of the cell and rousing it to normal activity. This may be accomplished in many ways, but all ways, at the last, are mental ways, for it is not the way that works the cure, but the mind that is aroused by the way. These points will be brought out as we proceed. In our next chapter, we shall consider the form of psychic healing called pranic healing. Summary. Psychic healing operates through three main approaches: pranic healing, energy transfer; mental healing, using thought power; and spiritual healing, drawing on higher consciousness. Each method has its own application, but all work on the principle of restoring harmony and balance to the body and mind. Key takeaways. Pranic healing focuses on transferring life energy to restore health. Mental healing uses thoughts and beliefs to influence the body. Spiritual healing connects with higher forces for deeper transformation. Action items. Experiment with different healing methods to determine what resonates with you. Pay attention to how your thoughts affect your physical state. Develop a daily practice that incorporates energy work, mental discipline, or spiritual connection. Chapter 6. The Principles of Pranic Healing. Before we can understand pranic healing, we must understand something about prana. Prana is the name given by the yogi philosophers to vital force, or energy, which is found within the body of every living thing. It may be called the life force. At the last, prana is known to be mental in its nature, and is the energy of the mind of the universe. But in order to avoid metaphysical distinctions in this book, let us follow the usual custom of treating prana as an independent thing, just as we do mind and matter. The yogis teach that prana is a universal principle, a something pervading all space, and together with mind and matter, composing the threefold manifestation of the Absolute. Leaving aside the manifestations of prana in the forms of force, known as electricity, heat, light, etc., let us consider it in its manifestation of vital force, which is the only aspect with which we are concerned in this book. Prana is the force by which all activity is carried on in the body, by which all bodily movements are possible, by which all functioning is done, by which all signs of life manifest themselves. We have described prana at considerable length in our other books, and do not desire to repeat ourselves and to take up space in such repetitions any more than can be avoided. Briefly, however, we may say that prana is that principle of life which is found in the air, water, food, etc., from which the living organism absorbs it to use in the work of the body. We advise all students of this book to read either the Science of Breath or else Hatha Yoga in order to gain a fuller idea of the subject of prana. In the books named, we have given many exercises whereby prana may be stored up and acquired, and also how it may be used. The general principles of pranic healing rests on the fact that prana may be transferred or transmitted from one person to another in many ways. The usual method, and the most effective, is to use the hands and make passes over the sick person, and at the same time directing a current of prana to the affected part, thereby stimulating and stirring into activity the sluggish cell groups. The prana so transferred acts as a bracing tonic to the patient and invigorates and strengthens him wonderfully, besides tending to produce the local improvement just noted. Prana may also be sent to the patient in the shape of energized thought, directed from the mind of the healer. This fact has not generally been brought out in works on the subject, but we shall pay much attention to it in our consideration of pranic healing, in our next chapter. In fact, very wonderful healing work may be performed by those methods alone, without reference to the other phases of healing. The student will notice that we are not tarrying long to discuss theories. This is done purposely, for we wish to make this book a book of practical facts and instruction, and the majority of the theories will be familiar to those who have read our other books, which, although not devoted to the subject of healing, nevertheless touch upon the general theories underlying all psychic phenomena. Healing of the sick by means of laying on of hands has been known from the earliest days of the race. As far back in history as we are able to go, we may find trace of this practice, and it is only fair to surmise that before the days of written history, the custom was likewise prevalent. It is found among all races of people today, even among the savage races. It seems to have arisen from an instinctive conviction in the mind of man that healing lay in that direction. The Indians, the Egyptians, the Jews, the Chinese of ancient days were perfectly familiar with this form of healing. In Egypt, the ancient carvings in the rocks show healers treating patients by placing one hand on the stomach and the other on the back. And the early explorers of China report that similar practices were common there. The Old Testament is full of instances of this form of healing, and we also find cases mentioned in the New Testament. St. Patrick is reported to have healed the blind in Ireland by placing his hands upon their eyes. St. Bernard is reported as having cured 11 blind people, and to have enabled 18 lame persons to regain the use of the limbs, all in one day. And in Cologne, he is reported to have cured 12 lame people, also 3 dumb persons and 10 deaf ones, all by means of the laying on of hands. The history of the early church is full of instances of this sort, and making allowance for the romantic tales that always arise in such cases, we may see that much good and effective work was done by these people in this way. Pyrrhus, the king of Epirus, is reported by history to have had the power of curing colic and diseases of the spleen by touching the persons affected. The Emperor Vespasian is said to have cured nervous diseases and lameness, blindness, etc. by laying on of hands. Hadrian cured people having dropsical diseases by applying the points of his fingers to them. King Olaf healed instantaneously by laying his hands upon the sufferer. The early kings of England and France healed goitre and throat affections by the king's touch. In England, there was a disease called the king's evil, which was thought to be curable only by the touch of the king. The courts of Habsburg were believed to be able to cure stammering by a kiss. Pliny reports that in the ancient days there were men who cured the bites of serpents by the touch. Numerous religious celebrities cured disease by the laying on of hands. In England, Greatrakes created quite a sensation and invited persecution by going about curing all sorts of diseases in this way. His success in curing diseases that had been thought to be curable by the king's touch caused many to regard him as a pretender to the throne. In the 17th century, a gardener named Leverett performed wonderful cures in the streets of London by stroking the afflicted with his fingers. In 1817, a Cilician innkeeper named Richter cured thousands of people by applying his hands to them. So you see, the fact of pranic healing has made itself apparent in all ages and among all people, and those having sufficient confidence in themselves to perform cures were looked upon as specially gifted persons. But the fact is that the gift is one common to the race, and may be manifested by anyone who has sufficient confidence in himself to try it, and who has sufficient earnestness to throw his heart into the work. The old yogi teachers of over 25 centuries ago had reduced this form of healing to a science, and traces of their knowledge filtered out to all parts of the world. The Egyptians obtained their knowledge from the great yogi teachers and established schools of their own. The Greeks obtained a similar knowledge from India and Egypt, and the Hebrews and Assyrians are believed to have obtained theirs through Egyptian channels. The early Greek physicians performed their principal cures by the laying on of hands and manipulation of the affected parts of the body. With them, the healing process was something belonging to the orders of the priesthood, and the general public were not allowed to participate in its mysteries. Hippocrates has written, "The affections suffered by the body, the soul sees quite well with shut eyes." Wise physicians, even among the ancients, were aware how beneficial to the blood is to make slight frictions with the hands over the body. It is believed by many experienced doctors that the heat which oozes out of the hand on being applied to the sick is highly salutary and assuaging. The remedy has been found to be applicable to sudden as well as habitual pains and various species of debility, being both renovating and strengthening in its effects. It has often appeared, while I have thus been soothing my patients, as if there were a singular property in my hands to pull and draw away from the affected parts aches and diverse impurities, by laying my hand upon the place and by extending my fingers toward it. Thus, it is known to some of the learned that health may be implanted in the sick by certain gestures and by contact, as some diseases may be communicated from one to another. Aesculapius treated diseases by breathing on the affected parts and by stroking them with his hands. The ancient Druids, that is the priesthood, performed cures in this way, the same being made a part of their religious ceremonies and rites. Tacitus, Vopiscus, and Lampridius report these things of the Druids and give wonderful testimony regarding their gifts. The records of the Middle Ages are filled with similar accounts of wonderful cures, accomplished by the laying on of the hands, the churches being the usual scene of the cures. Van Helmont, who lived about the first part of the 17th century, seemed to be acquainted with the principles of pranic healing, for he writes, "Magnetism is active everywhere, and there is nothing new in it but the name. It is a paradox only to those who ridicule everything, and who attribute to the power of Satan whatever they are unable to explain." About the same time, a Scotchman named Maxwell taught similar methods of healing. He believed in a vital spirit pervading the universe, which man could draw upon in order to cure diseases. In 1734, Father Heal, a priest, taught the existence of an universal fluid, which might be used to cure diseases. He made many wonderful cures, but was driven out of the church for possessing the power of the devil and using witchcraft. Mesmer taught the theory of animal magnetism and accomplished cures by its aid, always using his hands in applying it. Mesmer left many followers and disciples, many of whom gained great prominence, the Marquis of Puysegur being one of these. In Germany, Mesmer's doctrines, and those that grew of them, gained great popularity and prominence. Bremen was a great center of the animal magnetism doctrine, and from there it spread all over Germany. The Prussian government took a great interest in the matter and established a hospital for the cure of diseases by magnetic treatment. Various continental governments passed rigid laws keeping the magnetic treatments in the hands of the medical fraternity. And so, from country to country, the new doctrines spread. Often repressed by governmental interference, urged on by medical opposition, it still flourishes in various forms and under different theories. During the past 10 years, it has gained great prominence in America and Great Britain, both from the various schools of magnetic healing, as well as from the tremendous growth of the New Thought movement. Many theories have been evolved to account for it, ranging from purely material ones to religious conceptions. But, notwithstanding the theories, the work went on, and cures were accomplished. The laying on of hands played a prominent part in nearly all these forms of healings, in spite of their theories or names of their schools. Many people still believe that this form of healing is some sort of special gift, inherent in and bestowed upon certain individuals. But this is not so, for the gift of healing is inherent in each person, although some attain more proficiency than others, by reason of their peculiar temperamental adaptability for the work. And all may cultivate and develop this gift. We do not care to devote a great deal of space to the theory underlying pranic healing, for all the various forms of healing by the laying on of hands really comes under this head, in spite of conflicting theories and names. But we may as well briefly run over the fundamental ideas underlying the subject. Perhaps the better way would be to identify the word prana with that which we recognize as vital force, so we will use the word vital force in this chapter in our work of explaining the nature of prana. Vital force is that which underlies all physical action of the body. It is that which causes the circulation of the blood, the movements of the cells, in fact all the motions upon which depend the life of the physical body. Without this vital force, there could be no life, no motion, no action. Some call it nervous force, but it is the one thing, no matter by what name it may be called. It is this force that is sent forth from the nervous system by an effort of the will when we wish a muscle to move, and it is this force which causes that muscle to move. It is not necessary to go into a discussion of the real nature and essence of this vital force, for that would carry us far into other phases of the subject. Enough for our purpose is the fact that it really exists and may be used in the healing of disease. The electrician, even the most advanced men of that science, know nothing of the real nature of electricity, and yet they are able to make wonderful use of it, and to understand its laws of operation. And so, it is with this matter of vital force, for to understand its real nature and origin, one would need to know the real nature and origin of the universe. But man may, and does, use this force every moment of his life, and may turn it to account in other ways, such as the healing of the sick. Man absorbs his supply of vital force from the food he eats, the water he drinks, and largely from the air he breathes. He also has a mental source of energy, whereby he draws to himself energy from the great reservoirs of energy, of the universal mind. In our books, Science of Breath and Hatha Yoga, we have gone into this matter at greater length, and all students of psychic healing should acquaint themselves with those books, if they have not done so already. This vital energy is stored up in the brain and great nerve centers of the body, from which it is drawn to supply the constantly arising wants of the system. It is distributed over the wires of the nervous system to all parts of the body. In fact, every nerve is constantly charged with vital force, which is replenished when exhausted. Every nerve is a live wire through which the flow of vital force proceeds. And, more than this, every cell in the body, no matter where it is located or what work it is doing, contains more or less vital energy at all times. A strong, healthy person is one who is charged with a goodly supply of vital force, which travels to all parts of the body, refreshing, stimulating, and producing activity and energy. Not only does it do this, but it surrounds his body like an aura, and may be felt by those coming in contact. A person depleted of vital force will manifest ill health, lack of vitality, etc., and will only regain his normal condition when he replenishes his store of vitality. While the medical fraternity are quite free to express their belief in the existence of vital force, although they differ in their theories regarding the nature of the same, they insist that it cannot be transferred beyond the limits of the nervous system of the person producing or manifesting it. But this is contradicted by the actual experiences of thousands of people who know that vital force, prana, or magnetism, call it what you will, may be, and has been transmitted to the body of a third person, who is thereby strengthened and invigorated by reason thereof. Many of the advocates and practitioners of this form of healing have caused a confusion in the public mind by calling it magnetism or magnetic healing, etc. There is nothing magnetic about this vital force, for it arises from an entirely different cause, although, to be sure, all forms of force or energy arise from the same primal cause. Vital force is something which plays its own part in the economy of nature, and that part is entirely different from that played by magnetism. It is something different from anything else and can be compared only with itself. All persons have more or less vital force, and all persons have the power of increasing their store and of transmitting it to others, and thereby curing disease. In other words, all persons are potential healers. There has been much talk about persons being gifted in this form of healing, but the fact is that all persons have the gift, and may develop it by confidence and practice, and this development is the purpose of this part of the book. The principles of pranic healing is the filling of the cells of the affected part with a fresh and full supply of vital force or prana, whereby the cells are enabled to regain normal powers of functioning and work. The consequence being that when the cells work properly, the organ recovers its former activity, and the entire system regains health. And health, after all, is merely normal functioning. Summary. Pranic healing is based on the idea that the body is constantly interacting with life force energy, prana. Imbalances in this energy lead to illness, while restoring proper prana flow promotes health. Key takeaways. Energy imbalances create illness, while restoring balance leads to healing. Conscious control of prana enhances overall vitality. Action items. Practice deep breathing techniques to increase your energy levels. Observe how different environments influence your energy state. Begin to visualize prana flowing through your body as a healing force. Chapter 7. The Practice of Pranic Healing. The use of the hands in healing seems to be the result of an instinctive tendency of the race. The mother naturally places her hands on the head of the child who runs to her with a story of a fall or hurt, and the child seems to be quieted and relieved by the application of the mother's hands. How many times do we see and hear mothers relieving their children in this way, saying, "Now, dear, it is all right. Mother has made it all right. Now run away and play." And the child departs, its tears drying on its cheeks. Or, if any of us hurt ourselves, how natural it is to place the hands on the part, and getting relief in that way. The curing of headaches by the application of the hands is quite common, and the touch of the hand of the nurse brings relief to the sick person. And these simple movements, almost instinctive in their nature, form the basis of the practice of pranic healing. The process is so simple that it scarcely needs to be taught, although in this book we shall present to your attention some of the best methods practiced by those who have attained proficiency in the science of this form of healing. The principal means of conveying vital force or prana in healing are known as 1. Gazing, or transmitting by the eye, 2. Passes, or transmitting by the hands, and 3. Breathing, or transmitting by the breath. All of these methods are efficacious, and, in fact, all may be used conjointly with the others. Inasmuch as the transmission of the vital force is largely mental, and as the eye is a well-known channel of conveying mental force, it follows that the eye may be advantageously used in conveying or transmitting vital force in healing. In the process of healing, when passes are being made over the affected part, the healer will find that it will increase the effect if he will look intently at the part being treated, and in so doing concentrate his mind and will that power be transferred to the part, and the diseased cells be given strength to properly perform their work. Many healers use the breath, during healing, with excellent results. It is usually applied by breathing directly upon the affected parts, in which the warm breath seems to have a wonderfully stimulating effect. It is also applied by breathing upon a piece of flannel, applied directly over the affected part, in which the flannel retains much of the heat, and soon grows too warm for comfort. These forms will be noted as we proceed. But the principal means of transmitting the vital force, in this form of healing, is by the use of the hands, by means of passes and manipulations. We shall consider the process of making passes first, and will then take up the several forms of manipulation. The position of the hands in making the passes may be described as follows. Hold the hands well apart, with the fingers extended and separated. If your patient be seated, raise your hand above his head, and then bring them down before him, slowly and gradually, until you finish with a sweeping motion about the knees. When the pass is completed, swing the fingers sideways, as if you were throwing water from them, and then bring up the hands with fingers closed, forming the upward movement along the sides of the patient with the palms of the hands toward his sides. Then, when the hands reach over his head, again bring them down in front of him, with the fingers extended. By keeping the idea that you are bathing him in a flow of vital force, which is pouring from your finger ends, you will soon acquire the power motion. And, after all, each healer has his own favorite motions, which come to him instinctively. The downward motions of the hands bring a restful feeling to the patient, while an upward movement in front of the face causes a feeling of wakefulness and activity. There are a number of variations in the several passes, etc., which we shall now consider. The student is advised to acquaint himself with the various movements, that he may not appear awkward when he practices upon some person desiring relief. Familiarity with the movements imparts a confidence that cannot be acquired otherwise, and besides, It leaves the mind of the healer free from bother about details and enables him to concentrate his attention upon the work of healing. Longitudinal passes are passes made in a downward direction along the body, such as we have mentioned above. They are made along the part affected, whether that part be the head, chest, limbs, or any special part of the body. They are always made downward and never upward. As we have said above, the idea to be kept in the mind is that you are pouring out a stream of vital force from the tips of your fingers. Your fingers must be spread out, as above stated, and the palm must be underneath. The movements must be down, with fingers extended, but the upward movements must be made along the sides of the patient, with fingers closed and palms turned toward the sides of the patient. No special distance is to be observed, this matter being left to your instinctive sense, which will soon inform you as to the right distance, which will be found to be much nearer in some cases than in others. When you feel that the distance is just about right, then be satisfied that you have caught the proper distance at which the best effects may be produced. In a general way, however, it may be said that a slow movement, at a distance of, say, 3 or 4 inches from the body, produces a sense of comfort, rest, and relief. A rather more rapid movement made at the distance of, say, 1 foot seems to have a more stimulating effect, and causes a sense of activity and energy in the parts. A still more stimulating effect is obtained when the passes are made more rapidly and vigorously at a distance of, say, 2 feet from the body. These last-mentioned passes tend to stimulate the circulation and to arouse activity in sluggish organs. Transversal passes are passes made across the body or part. They are made by turning the hands so that the palms will be sideways and outward instead of inward. This will require a peculiar turning of the wrist, but the position will soon become easy. When the hands are in the right position, sweep them out, sideways, before the body or part, and in bringing them back, reverse the palms so that they are inward and facing each other, instead of having their backs to each other. These passes have been found to be very efficacious in loosening up the affected parts, where congestion has occurred. It is often well to give this form of treatment before giving the regular longitudinal passes. A valuable form of treatment in some cases is had in what is known as palmar presentation. This is accomplished by presenting the palm of the hand to the affected part, at a distance of about 6 inches, or even a little nearer, and holding it there for several minutes. This is usually performed with one hand alone. It has a stimulating and strengthening effect. Akin to this is what is known as digital presentation, which consists in extending and presenting the fingers of the right hand toward the affected part, at a distance of 6 inches, and holding them there for several minutes, allowing the vital force to flow from the ends of the fingers into the affected part. In some cases, the best results may be obtained in this manner. A variation of digital presentation may be effected by what is known as rotary presentation, which consists in holding the hands as above stated for a moment or two, and then beginning a rotary movement of the hand at the distance of 6 inches from left to right, in the same direction as the hands of a watch. This is quite stimulating. Another variation is what is known as perforating, which is accomplished by giving the fingers a twisting movement, just as if they were boring holes in the body of the patient, at the distance of 6 inches. This movement is very stimulating and stirs into activity parts that are sluggish or congested. It is apt to produce a feeling of warmth in the part treated. We wish to call attention to the fact that in these presentation treatments, the different forms vary in force. For instance, palmar presentation is the mildest form. Then comes digital presentation, which is considerably stronger. Then comes rotary presentation, which manifests a considerably higher degree of energy. Then comes perforation, which is the strongest of all. Very good results may be obtained in certain cases by what is known as the application of the hands, which consists in merely placing the hands, the palms of the hands, of course, directly upon the flesh over the affected part, and holding them there for several moments. Then removing them, rub the palms briskly together and replace them on the part. Repeat this a number of times, and marked results will be apparent. This is a favorite treatment for headaches, and in fact may be used in the treatment of almost any form of trouble, changing the position of the hands in order to suit the emergencies of the case. In cases of neuralgia, etc., this form of treatment is found valuable in relieving the pain. Stroking is a form of treatment that is very beneficial in directing the circulation and equalizing it when there appears to be a tendency toward imperfect circulation, etc. It has a sedative, soothing effect, and is a very good method to use in winding up or terminating a treatment. Stroking should be applied by bringing the tips of the fingers in a very light contact with the body of the patient, over the affected parts, or over the entire body. It should always be performed in a downward or outward direction, and never in an upward or inward direction. It should be performed in one direction only, and not to and fro. The tips of the fingers are to be moved gently over the body, with a very light contact, not even the weight of the hand being allowed to bear upon the patient. Lightness, gentleness, and airiness are the words best describing the movement. A little practice will give the student the right movement. If you desire to stroke the entire body of the patient, it is well to divide the process into two distinct treatments, viz. 1. From the head down to the waist, and 2. From the waist down to the feet. In giving the general stroking treatment to the whole body, it is well to devote considerable attention to the chest and abdominal region, in order that the organs be stimulated and their magnetism equalized. It is well, also, to remember that the old and tried principle of rubbing is but another mode of communicating vital force, or prana. This form of treatment is as old as the race, and has been practiced in all times and by all peoples. Alpini reports, in his work entitled De Medicina Egyptiorum, that the Egyptian priests were adepts at certain mystical and medical rubbings, which form of treatment was used by them in curing chronic diseases. Hippocrates held rubbings in high favor, and evidently employed them very frequently. He has written as follows: "A doctor ought to know many things. He should not be unacquainted with the benefits to be derived from rubbing. With its application, quite contrary effects may be produced. It loosens stiff joints, and gives tone and strength to those which are relaxed." Celsus, nearly 2,000 years ago, was a vigorous advocate of this method of treatment, and in his books he devotes much space to this form of vital treatment, and incidentally proves that it was known and practiced long before his time. In ancient Rome, rubbing was a favorite form of treatment, and was employed regularly by the wealthy in order to keep in good condition, a practice that is followed by many wealthy people of our own times, under the name of massage, etc. Alexander of Tralles, a Greek physician of the 6th century, was an initiate in the mystic rubbings, and incorporated it in his practice. He claimed that it helped to throw off morbid matter, and calmed the nervous system, and facilitated perspiration. He also held that it tended to calm convulsions and was efficacious in a number of complaints. He wrote much on the subject and agreed with Hippocrates that these secret rubbings should be imparted only to sacred persons, and not allowed to become the property of the profane. Peter Borel, the physician to Louis XIII of France, reports that one Déguste, a clerk of the court at Nismes, healed multitudes of people by rubbing their limbs. And in our own time, massage is a deservedly popular form of treatment, and the new school of osteopathy is growing in favor. In both of these forms of practice, outside of any particular virtue, due to the particular merits claimed by the respective practitioners, there is a great benefit derived by the transmitting of vital force from healer to patient, whether the practitioner admits this to be the case or not. In rubbing for the purpose of stimulating the parts by vital force, the healer should be gentle in his movements, force not being desirable or necessary, as the effect is gained by the passing of vitality to the parts, not by the mere manipulation. In applying this form of treatment, the palm of the hand and the lower part of the fingers should be used. The tips of the fingers and the end of the thumb should be turned back. Healers having a fleshy lower part of the thumb may use its palmar surface effectively in this treatment. The movements should be made downward. Some practitioners use a slightly different movement from that above indicated, inasmuch as they make a peculiar pressure with the flat ends of the fingers, following after the pressure of the palm of the hand. Students may follow either plan, as may seem preferable to them. Some healers claim to get the best results from this employment of the finger ends, while others carefully avoid the use of same. In each case, it has been noticed that the particular form of treatment is used because the healer feels that the vital force is best conveyed by his particular form of treatment. It seems to be a matter of feeling on the part of the healer, and this peculiar feeling is a safe rule to follow, and it manifests itself to all persons after they begin to give treatments. Another form of treatment, known as rotary motion, has been found to be very efficacious by a number of healers. It consists in a circular rubbing movement of the hand and fingers, as above described, over the affected parts. The movements should always be made in the direction of the movement of the hands of a watch, and never in a reverse direction. This movement produces activity of the cells, and is useful in cases of sluggish functioning, etc. Another form of treatment is known as kneading, and is found valuable in cases of stiffened muscles, rheumatism, etc., in which the trouble is local and not organic. Kneading is accomplished by grasping the muscles or tissues and working them against the adjacent surfaces. It is composed of 3 different forms, viz., surface kneading, palmar kneading, and digital kneading. Surface kneading is practically a pinching movement and consists in grasping the skin firmly between the thumb and forefinger, and then lifting it up a little, and then releasing it, and letting it fly back to its normal condition. The 2 hands are used, alternately, the one picking up the skin as the other drops it, the surface being gone over in a systematic manner. This is quite a stimulating treatment, and is very beneficial in cases of poor circulation, etc. Palmar kneading is performed with the whole hand. The healer grasps the flesh, or muscle, with the palm of his hand, with fingers close together, and the thumb out. Do not use the thumb, but grasp the flesh between the palm of the hand and the fingers, the lower part of the palm, called the heel of the hand, and the fleshy part of the thumb being used in the movement. Hold the flesh firmly, and do not allow it to slip. Knead deeply, so as to reach well into the muscles and flesh. The muscle or flesh should be thoroughly worked, and yet not sufficiently to produce soreness. Do not use too much force, but be gentle and yet firm. Use the hands alternately. There are a number of variations of this movement, which will come to the healer as he practices. He will feel that his hands are alive, and he will feel instinctively the best way to impart that life. Digital kneading is performed by grasping the flesh between the finger and thumb and gently rubbing it against the other flesh, or bone. In cases where stimulation is thought advisable, one may give forms of percussion treatment, of which several are here mentioned. In giving this treatment, the wrist should be kept flexible and loose, a stiff wrist being guarded against. The percussion should be elastic and springy, avoiding all roughness or bruising. The first method of administering percussion may be called the pounding movement, which consists in striking the body with the inside flat surface of the half-closed fist, the heel of the hand, and the closed ends of the fingers coming in contact with the flesh. The second method of administering percussion may be called the slapping movement, which consists of a chopping movement of the hand, which is held open with the fingers held together, the blow being made with the little finger side of the hand being likened to a butcher's cleaver employed in chopping. The fingers are held loosely together, coming together in a vibratory movement when the blow strikes. The third method may be called the slapping method, in which the hand applies a slapping or spanking blow, the fingers being held rigid. The fourth method may be called the clapping method, in which the hand is held in a hollow shape, so as to give forth a hollow sound, the position being similar to that employed by some people in a theater when they wish to make a loud, hollow sound with their hands in applauding. A little practice will perfect one in this movement. The fifth method may be called the tapping method, and consists in holding the tips of the fingers of each hand together, and then tapping the body, using the hands alternately. A favorite method of administering pranic or vital force treatments is what is known as the vibrational treatment, and consists of a series of vibrating movements of the healer's hand. The fingers are usually employed in giving this treatment. The fingers are placed firmly over the part to be treated, and then a fine trembling or vibrating movement is communicated to the hand by the muscles of the arm. The movement is acquired by practice and is somewhat difficult at first. It is a most powerful form of treatment, and the patient feels it like a current of electricity. You must not press upon the body with your wrist, and no more than the weight of the hand should be felt by the patient. When the vibrational treatment is properly applied, the vibrations should permeate the region treated, so that if the other hand be placed under the body, the vibrations should be perceptible. Some teachers have instructed their pupils in this form of treatment by placing a glass of water on a table and instructing the student to make the vibrational movements on the table. When the proper motion is acquired, the water will merely quiver in the center and not move from side to side. We urge the student to give the necessary time and attention to vibrational treatment, as when once acquired, it will be found wonderfully efficacious. The breath treatment has been used by many healers with wonderful effect. This form of treatment also has been known from prehistoric times. Arnobi informs us that the Egyptians used this method in the treatment of disease with great success, and some claimed that it was superior to stroking, or laying on, of the hands. Merklin, in his Tractatus Medicophysis, tells of a case in which a young child, apparently lifeless, was restored to life and strength by the breath of an old woman. Burrell tells of a sect in one part of India who cured sickness by this method, and there are in India today certain priests who breathe on the sick and seem to impart new life and vigor to them. Burrell, who lived about 1650 A.D., tells of a case in which a servant brought to life the apparently dead body of his master by breathing upon him, and adds quaintly, "Is it astonishing that the breath of man should produce such results when we read that God breathed into the body of Adam to give him life? It is a fraction of this divine breath which even today can bring back health to the sick." In Spain, there are persons called insalmadores, who heal by the saliva and by the breath. There are two general methods employed by healers in breath treatment. The first is generally known as hot insufflation, which consists in placing over the affected part a clean towel or napkin, and then pressing the half-opened mouth close up to the body so that the breath cannot escape. Then breath slowly but firmly, as if you were causing the breath to penetrate the body. The towel will become very warm, and the patient will plainly feel the heat. Another form of giving this treatment is to hold the lips at a distance of nearly an inch from the body, and to breathe upon it just as one does in winter to warm his hands. The second plan consists in puckering up the lips and blowing the breath from a distance of a foot or more, just as if you were trying to blow out a candle. This has a calming effect and may even produce drowsiness. It is also useful in clearing a congested head caused by overstudy, etc. Treatment by the eye is also much in favor by some healers who use it in the following manner. They allow their gaze to sweep over the person's or the affected part and literally bathe the patient in their rays. Vital force is oftentimes imparted by means of intermediate objects, such as handkerchiefs, etc., which have been magnetized or treated, just as if the person themselves were being treated. To treat or magnetize an object, such as a handkerchief, etc., the healer must make the passes over it, until he feels that it is surcharged, when he may discontinue his efforts. The object, when worn by the patient, seems to radiate its magnetism gradually until after several days it seems to be exhausted. Some magnetize the object by holding it between their hands for a time. In giving the several treatments, it is well to always conclude by giving the stroking treatment before described. This leaves the patient soothed and calmed down and quieted. Never fail to quiet down the patient after a treatment. These things will soon come intuitively to the healer. And after all, there is a something that cannot be taught except by one's own experience. And no two healers follow just the same methods. Do not be afraid to follow your intuitive sense in this direction. Summary: Pranic healing techniques involve breath work, visualization, and energy projection through the hands. By directing prana into affected areas, energy blockages are removed, and healing is accelerated. Key takeaways: hands can be used to channel prana into areas of imbalance. Healing energy can be transferred between individuals. Pranic healing works best when the healer's energy is strong and balanced. Action items: practice sensing energy with your hands. Experiment with directing energy to different parts of your body. Try sending healing energy to another person or plant.
To continue listening, step deeper into the wisdom at Next Level Soul TV, where sacred teachings, spiritual cinema, transformative courses, and divine stories await your soul's unfolding. Enter the portal at www.nextlevelsoul.tv and let your spirit remember what it already knows. Awaken, expand, and evolve.